I died 3 times before I turned 27. The first time, I was 9 years old and my mother's fist taught me that love and pain come from the same hands. I would have bled out under that desk if a monster hadn't found me first. The second time, I was 26 and I chose to walk away from the only man who ever made me feel safe. I lasted 48 hours before my heart gave up beating for all the wrong reasons. The third time, I drank blood from a vampire's wrist in a room full of stopped clocks while the man who wanted to kill us both smiled from the shadows. But I'm getting ahead of myself. This story starts the way all doomed love stories start. With blood on marble floors. With a girl too stupid or too brave to run when every instinct screamed danger. With a vampire who hadn't cared about anything in 147 years suddenly losing 3 centuries of control because I cut my hand on broken glass. They say you can't love a monster. They're wrong. You can love a monster. You can become one. And if you're really unlucky, you can do both and survive to tell the story. My name is Iris Wren. And this is how a vampire lord saw a little girl hiding bruises, destroyed her abuser so completely the town still whispers about it 17 years later, and then made the fatal mistake of letting me grow up and fall in love with him. Some endings are written in blood. Ours was written in 3 drops that hit white marble on a December night when I came back to the only place that ever felt like home. Blood hit the marble floor in slow, perfect drops. Iris watched them fall from her palm, watched the way they caught the firelight, watched the way Thorne Ashcroft went completely still across the entrance hall. His eyes were blue when she walked in. Now they were turning black from the edges in, like ink spreading through water. She should have been terrified. She wasn't. 3 days earlier, Iris Wren had driven into Ashford Hollow for the first time in 8 years with a lawyer's letter on her passenger seat and a heart full of questions she had no business asking. The manor looked smaller than she remembered. Or maybe she'd just gotten bigger. 26 now. A social worker with a degree and a 1-bedroom apartment in Boston and a life that looked normal on paper. But she hadn't slept through the night since she was 9 years old, and every man she'd ever dated felt like a cheap copy of something she couldn't name. The estate lawyer, Gideon Pierce, met her at the door. Thin guy, nervous energy, eyes that didn't quite meet hers. He handed her a key to her old room and checked his watch 3 times in 2 minutes. "You should be gone by morning," he said. "It's not safe for you here anymore." She didn't ask why. She already knew. The library looked exactly the same. Dark wood, older than the country itself, books in languages that didn't exist anymore, and a massive oak desk that she'd once hidden under with a sprained arm and a bruised face, praying her mother wouldn't find her. She'd been 9 years old and so small the world felt like it was made of giants and fists. That was the night she met him. Thorne stood by the fireplace now like he'd been expecting her. Maybe he had been. He looked the same. Exactly the same. Tall, sharp features, dark hair that brushed his collar, skin too pale to be healthy if he were human. He wasn't. "You shouldn't have come back," he said without turning around. Iris set her bag down. "I wanted to thank you." "You already did. 8 years ago. Not for saving me." She stepped closer. "For the scholarship. The trust fund. The apartment deposit I thought came from the university but didn't." He turned then, and his eyes were colder than the December wind outside. "You were a child I saved. That's all. Don't make it into something it wasn't." "Then why did you keep watching me?" The silence stretched like a wound opening. "I saw you," Iris continued. "Outside my building in Boston. Last year. Standing under the streetlight at 3 in the morning. You were gone when I blinked, but I know what I saw." Thorne's jaw tightened. "You need to leave. I'm not a child anymore." That's the problem. The air between them felt charged, dangerous. Iris had spent 8 years trying to convince herself that what she felt was gratitude, hero worship, trauma bonding, anything except the truth that sat in her chest like a second heartbeat. She'd been in love with him since she was 17 and realized that safe wasn't a place. It was a person. Even if that person had fangs. "You taught me something," she said quietly. "That monsters are just broken things that never learned to ask for help." Before he could respond, Gideon appeared in the doorway, breathless. "We have a problem. There are others. Vampires who've been waiting for Thorne to care about something again. They're watching the manor. If they find out you're here, if they realize what you mean to him—" "I mean nothing to him," Iris interrupted. Gideon looked at Thorne. "Then why can I smell a bond forming?" Thorne's expression cracked. "Get her out of here. Tonight." But Iris never made it to her car. Because an hour later, she was carrying a box of her childhood things down the stairs when the bottom gave out. The box shattered. Glass from an old picture frame sliced her palm open. And when the blood started dripping, everything changed. That's how she ended up here. In the entrance hall. Bleeding. Watching Thorne lose 347 years of control in real time. He took a step toward her. Stopped. Took another. His hands were shaking. "Iris," he whispered, and his voice sounded like gravel in death and need. "You need to run." She didn't. He moved faster than anything human, disappearing through a doorway. She heard a door slam somewhere deep in the manor. Heard something that sounded like breaking furniture. And then she did the stupidest, bravest thing she'd ever done. She followed the sound of his destruction down into the dark. The cellar was stone and shadow and cold that lived in your bones. Thorne was chained to the wall. He'd done it himself. One hand locked in an iron shackle that looked medieval, the other gripping the chain so hard it was cutting into his palm. His blood looked black in the dim light. He was breathing like he'd been running for miles. "Run," he begged, and she'd never heard him beg for anything. "Please, Iris. I can smell your heartbeat and I haven't wanted to kill someone this badly in a century." She should have run. Anyone with half a brain would have run. But Iris had spent her whole life running from things that wanted to hurt her. And for the first time, she was standing in front of something that was hurting itself to keep her safe. So instead of running, she stepped closer. "Tell me what you need." When Iris was 12 years old, she used to watch Thorne from her bedroom window. He would stand in the snow behind the manor at midnight, perfectly still, like he was punishing himself for something she didn't understand. She'd press her hand to the frozen glass and wonder what it felt like to be that alone. Now she knew. Dawn came and found her sitting on the cellar stairs. Thorne had talked himself down from the edge, but it took hours. Hours of her voice in the dark, telling him about Boston, about the kids she worked with, about anything that would remind him she was human, not food. When the hunger finally loosened its grip, he'd unlocked himself and disappeared without a word. She found him 3 rooms away, standing in the shadows like he wanted to dissolve into them. "I'm sorry," he said to the wall. "For what? Not killing me?" "For wanting to." Iris didn't know what to say to that. So she went looking for answers instead. She found Margot in the kitchen, the only staff member old enough to remember when the manor had been full of life. The old woman took one look at Iris's bandaged hand and Thorne's closed door and sighed like she'd been expecting this for years. "You need to understand something," Margot said, pouring tea with shaking hands. "Vampire bonds don't work like human love. They're not a choice. If he's kept you in his heart this long, it's not protection anymore. It's a blood bond forming. Even without the bite." "What does that mean?" It means you're in danger. Both of you. But Iris didn't feel like she was in danger. She felt like she was finally exactly where she was supposed to be. For days before Christmas, the town held its annual festival. Iris hadn't been since she was 8. She convinced Thorne to go, mostly because she knew he'd say no and she wanted to see if he'd surprise her. He did. He showed up at the car in a black coat that made him look like he'd stepped out of a different century, and his eyes held something that might have been hope if hope weren't so dangerous. Ashford Hollow looked like a postcard. White lights strung between buildings, the smell of cider and pine, families laughing. Iris watched it all and felt the strange ache of wanting to belong to something normal. Thorne watched her, and she could feel his eyes like a physical weight. "You're staring," she said without looking at him. "I know." The candlelight vigil started at 8. Hundreds of blood-red candles lit in the church courtyard, reflected in windows that showed everyone's face but Thorne's. Iris stood next to an empty reflection and felt the wrongness of it. He didn't belong in her world. She was starting to think she didn't belong in it either. That's when it happened. A drunk man, mid-40s, grabbing her arm too hard when she tried to pass. Slurring something about pretty girls and Christmas cheer. She'd handled worse 1,000 times. But Thorne moved like violence in a suit, so fast the man didn't see him coming. 1 second he was grabbing Iris. The next he was against a wall with Thorne's hand around his throat and death in those blue eyes that were going black again. "Thorne," she said. "Hey. Look at me." Not him. Me. He looked. And she saw it. The thing he'd been trying to hide. This wasn't protection. This was obsession. This was 347 years of nothing mattering, and then suddenly everything mattering too much, and no idea how to hold it without breaking it. The man ran. Thorne let him. They didn't speak on the walk back. But when they reached the manor, Thorne stopped at the door and said, "I've stood outside your apartment in Boston. Watched you sleep. Killed 2 men who followed you home from work. You don't know me, Iris. You know the version of me that could still pretend to be human." She should have been horrified. She should have called someone. Should have run like Gideon said. Instead, she said, "Then stop pretending." Something shifted in his expression. Something that looked like surrender. "I can't give you normal. I don't want normal. Iris. Kiss me." The space between them disappeared. His hand cupped her face like she was made of glass, and he'd already broken too many precious things. When his lips touched hers, it was gentle. Careful. Until it wasn't. Until he kissed her like he was drowning and she was air, and when her lip caught on one of his fangs and split, when that single drop of blood touched his tongue, the world caught fire. The bond snapped into place like a lock turning. Like something ancient recognizing itself. Thorne pulled back, breathing hard, his eyes wild. What did we just do? Iris touched her bleeding lip, felt the electricity singing through her veins, and smiled. Something we can't undo. 300 miles away, in a penthouse in New York City, a vampire named Silas Crow was pouring whiskey when he felt it. The sharp, unmistakable pulse of a new bond forming. He'd been monitoring Thorne Ashcroft for 17 years, waiting for the old fool to care about something again. Waiting for weakness to show itself. He set down his glass and smiled. Now the real game could begin. Iris had just made a choice that would cost her everything. She just didn't know it yet. Day 6 back in Ashford Hollow. Iris wrote in her journal by candlelight because the electricity felt too modern for what she was feeling. "I think I'm falling in love with something that could kill me by accident. And I don't care." She closed the book and wondered if this was how every doomed love story started. with someone too stupid or too brave to know the difference. Margot found her in the morning, brought coffee and the kind of truth that tasted like medicine. "Sit down," the old woman said. "If you're going to do this, you need to know what you're walking into." The vampire world had rules. Old ones. Blood bonds were forbidden with humans unless the human turned. If a lord formed one without completing the transformation, it was seen as weakness. And weak lords didn't keep their territory long. Rival vampire clans could challenge, kill, take everything. Thorne had been unchallenged for 200 years because he'd never shown weakness. Because he'd never cared about anything enough to lose. Until now. "You're a target," Margot said simply. "And so is he." Gideon appeared in the doorway like he'd been summoned by the conversation. He looked worse than yesterday. Hadn't slept, probably. He pointed at Iris with the kind of anger that came from fear. "You think this is a love story? It's a death sentence." He ran a hand through his hair. "I'm half vampire. My mother was human. I've spent 30 years watching what happens when our worlds mix. It doesn't end well. Thorne wouldn't hurt me. He doesn't have to. The others will." Iris wanted to argue, but she didn't know enough to fight back. So she went looking for answers in the only place that felt safe. The library. She found them in a locked drawer in Thorne's desk. Journals. Dozens of them. Leather-bound, pages yellowed with age, handwriting that looked like art. The entry from April 1867 stopped her heart. Her name was Amelie. I turned her to save her life. Cholera was taking everyone that spring. I thought love was enough. I thought if I gave her forever, we'd have time to make it beautiful. But she went mad within a week. Couldn't recognize herself. Couldn't stop screaming. She begged me to kill her. So I did. I have been alone ever since. I will be alone forever. It's what I deserve." Iris heard footsteps and looked up. Thorne stood in the doorway, and the look on his face when he saw what she was reading was pure devastation. "You had a wife. I had a mistake. She wasn't a mistake. She was sick." He crossed the room, took the journal from her hands like it burned to touch it. "I won't do that to you. I won't make you into what I am." "Then what are we doing?" "I don't know." His voice cracked. "But I can't let you go." The manor was full of covered mirrors. Iris had noticed but never asked why. Now she pulled the cloth off the one in the library. Saw herself alone in the reflection. Saw the space where Thorne should have been. Saw the future if she stayed human. Always alone in the glass. Always half of something that couldn't be whole. Before either of them could speak, the front door opened. Footsteps in the hall. Confident. Uninvited. The man who walked into the library was beautiful the way poisonous things were beautiful. Tall, elegant, with silver hair and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He looked at Thorne like they were old friends. Looked at Iris like she was a meal he was saving for later. "Thorne," the man said warmly. "It's been too long." "Silas." Thorne's voice went flat. "You're not welcome here." Silas Crow placed a hand over his heart in mock hurt. "I'm just here to congratulate you. Finally rejoining the world after all these years. And with such lovely company." He turned that empty smile on Iris. "You must be special." He hasn't cared about anything since Amelie. The name hung in the air like a blade. "Get out." "Of course." Silas headed for the door, paused. "Oh, Thorne? Others are watching now. Just thought you should know." When he was gone, Iris turned to Margot, who'd appeared in the hallway with a face like ash. "What is it?" Margot's hands were shaking. "Silas is the one who killed Thorne's wife. Drove her mad on purpose, used dark magic to poison the transformation. He wanted to prove Thorne was too weak to lead. And now he's going to do it again." Later, Iris would realize this was the moment she should have walked away. But love doesn't live in the logical parts of us. It lives in the parts that choose to stay even when staying might destroy you. She stood at the tall window, watching snow fall over Ashford Hollow, wondering if anyone else in the world was falling in love with the impossible. If you're watching this from your own kind of impossible, from your own winter or summer, your own small town or big city, drop a comment. Tell me where you are. I want to know where in the world you're living through this nightmare with her. Because something tells me you know exactly how she feels. Iris sat in the back pew of the old church on Maple Street at midnight, and the bite marks on her neck were still bleeding. Not much. Just enough that she could feel it. Just enough that she knew everything had changed. She pressed her fingers to the wound and thought, it wasn't supposed to happen like this. 12 hours earlier, Thorne hadn't spoken to her in 3 days. He'd been avoiding her since Silas left. Staying in the East Wing, taking his meals alone if he took them at all, moving through the manor like a ghost haunting his own life. When Iris finally cornered him in the hallway, his eyes were empty. "This was a mistake," he said. "You need to go back to Boston." Just like that. Just like that. She wanted to scream. Wanted to grab him and make him look at her the way he had at the festival, like she was the only real thing in his world. But his face was stone, and she'd learned a long time ago that you can't fight someone who won't let you in. That's when Silas came back. He arrived with 2 other vampires, witnesses he called them, and a smile that made Iris's skin crawl. He walked into the manor like he owned it, poured himself a drink from Thorne's bar, and made an offer that sounded reasonable until you looked underneath. "I'll leave you alone," Silas said. "Take my people and disappear. All you have to do is give up your territory. Sign it over. Retire from the world you clearly don't want to be part of anymore." Thorne's answer was one word. "No." Silas set down his glass. "Then I'll make this easy for you. Let's see if she still loves you when she sees what you really are." That's when he did it. Silas pulled a knife, cut his own arm, and smeared blood across his shirt. His witnesses gasped on cue. When Thorne moved to stop him, Silas twisted away, made it look like an attack. "He's losing control," Silas announced. "Attacking his own kind. Under vampire law, I demand a trial by witness." Gideon appeared from nowhere, tried to intervene. "This is a setup and you know it." Silas ignored him. "The trial is simple. Thorne must prove his control by spending 24 hours locked in a room with the human he's bonded to, while starving. If he can resist feeding, I'll drop all challenges. If he can't, well, we'll know he's too far gone." Iris felt her stomach drop. "You're insane." Thorne looked at her, and for the first time in 3 days, she saw emotion in his eyes. Fear. "I won't do it." "Then you forfeit," Silas said pleasantly. "And I take everything. Including her." The choice wasn't a choice at all. They locked them in the cellar. 24 hours. Thorne hadn't fed in a week, maybe more. He sat in the far corner with his back against the stone wall, as far from Iris as the room allowed. She could see him shaking. "You want to see the monster?" Thorne said quietly, and she knew he wasn't talking to her. He was talking to Silas, who was undoubtedly listening from somewhere above. "Keep pushing." The first 6 hours were manageable. They talked. She told him about her favorite case, a little boy who'd learned to smile again. He told her about the year he spent in Paris, before he stopped letting himself want things. But by hour 8, he stopped responding. By hour 12, he was barely human. "Thorne," she whispered. "Look at me. I can't." His voice was gravel and need. "If I look at you, I'll see the vein in your throat. I'll hear your heartbeat. I'll remember what you taste like. Then take what you need. Iris." She crossed the room, knelt in front of him. "I'm offering. If this is what you need to survive, take it." His control snapped like a wire pulled too tight. He grabbed her, pulled her close, and bit down. The pain was sharp and immediate and then gone, replaced by something that felt like falling and flying at the same time. She felt his hunger, his desperation, his love twisted up with needs so badly he couldn't tell them apart anymore. But then he stopped. Pulled back. The restraint of it nearly killed him. She could see it in his face, the war between what he wanted and who he was. That's when the door opened. Silas stood there with 4 witnesses, torches in hand like they'd planned the theatrical timing. His eyes went to Iris's bleeding neck, to Thorne's mouth stained red, and his smile was victorious. "He's already claimed her," Silas announced. "The bond is complete. By vampire law, she turns or she dies." "No," Thorne said. "No, this was a setup, you forced. The law doesn't care about circumstances." Silas turned to his witnesses. "You saw it. He fed from a bonded human. The transformation must be completed within 3 days or she dies to break the bond." Iris felt the room spinning. "Wait, what?" "It's vampire law," Gideon said from the doorway, his face ashen. "Once a bond is sealed with blood, it has to be completed. If it's broken by death instead, both of you feel it. It could kill him too." Silas walked closer to Thorne, and his voice dropped low enough that only they could hear. "I don't want your territory, old friend. I want to watch you suffer the way I did when you killed the woman I loved 200 years ago." The world stopped. "Amelie," Thorne said. "I loved her first. We were to be married. But you saw her, wanted her, took her. And when your arrogance turned her into a monster, you put her down like a sick dog." Silas's eyes were black with old rage. This was always about revenge. The Vampire Council arrived within the hour. 5 of them, ancient and cold, there to enforce laws that predated countries. They stood in the entrance hall and delivered the sentence like they were reading a shopping list. The human turns within 3 days or is executed to sever the bond. Thorne stepped forward. "I'll die first." "No," Silas said softly. "You'll watch her die. And you'll live forever knowing you killed another innocent." Iris was shaking, but her voice came out steady. "There's a third option. I run." Every vampire in the room looked at her. She'd never been good at running. But she'd also never had a reason to live this badly. 48 hours felt like 48 years. Iris spent them in a safe house in Pittsburgh that smelled like mold and fear, staring at walls that were too thin to keep out the sound of her own thoughts. Every time she closed her eyes, she felt the phantom pain of his bite. Every time her heart beat, she wondered if he could still feel it from miles away. Back in Ashford Hollow, Thorne was locked in the manor under council guard. Gideon told her later that he wasn't eating, wasn't speaking, just standing at the window staring in the direction she'd gone like he could will her back to safety. They were suffering in separate cages, and the bond between them pulled tighter with every hour that passed. Gideon found her on the 2nd day. Broke about 15 vampire laws to do it. He sat across from her in that rotting safe house and said the words that changed everything. There's a loophole. An ancient vampire in New Orleans named Delphine. She can break bonds. Iris sat up. How? Blood, he said quietly. Someone always has to die. She was on a bus to New Orleans within the hour. Didn't tell Thorne, couldn't risk him trying to stop her. She bought a ticket with cash and watched Pennsylvania disappear through a dirty window and told herself this was the right choice. One of them deserved to live a full life. It wasn't going to be her anyway. She made it as far as the bus station in Richmond, Virginia. Thorne found her on the platform at 2 in the morning. He looked like he'd walked through hell to get there. Blood on his shirt that wasn't his. Eyes wild. When he saw her, the relief and rage on his face were equal. You were going to die for me? Iris stood. How did you get out? I killed 2 of Silas's guards. He said it like he was commenting on the weather. Tracked you through the bond. Now answer the question. You were going to let them kill you for me. What's the difference? I've lived 347 years. You've barely started. Then give me a reason to want those years without you. He couldn't. The silence was answer enough. They took his car. Drove through the night. Arrived in New Orleans as the sun came up and the air turned thick with humidity and the smell of the river. Delphine lived in the Garden District in a house that looked like it had grown there instead of being built. Vines covered everything. The windows were dark even in daylight. She was waiting for them in a room filled with stopped clocks. Every single one frozen at different times, like she was collecting moments that would never move forward. Delphine herself looked ageless. Could have been 30, could have been 3,000. Her eyes were the color of amber, and when she looked at Iris, it felt like being seen all the way down to the bone. You want to break a blood bond, Delphine said. It's possible. But you won't like the price. Tell me, Thorne said. She smiled. Option 1. I erase every memory you have of her. She'll remember you, but you'll look at her like a stranger. The bond breaks when the love dies in your mind. No, Iris said immediately. Delphine continued like she hadn't spoken. Option 2. She turns. But the bond is already damaged by the time limit and the stress. 50% chance she goes mad like the last woman you turned. Thorne flinched. Option 3. Delphine leaned back. One of you kills Silas Crow. Take his life as payment to the council. Void their order. Ancient law. A life for a life. Outside, thunder rolled. The sky opened up, and rain hit the windows. But the rain looked wrong. Too dark. Iris realized with a sick lurch that it was red. Blood rain. Some kind of New Orleans magic she didn't understand. Her heartbeat synced to the thunder. Loud. Insistent. Alive. Tell me how to kill him, Iris said. Thorne turned on her. Absolutely not. You don't own my choices. I won't let you throw your life away for me. That's not your decision. They'd never fought before. Not really. But all the fear and desperation of the last 3 days came pouring out in anger because anger was easier than admitting how terrified they both were. You think I can live with myself if you die for this? Thorne's voice broke. You think that's love? Yes, Iris shot back. That's exactly what love is. Before either of them could say anything else, Delphine stood. You should know. Silas followed you here. The door behind them slammed open. Iris spun, but Thorne was already moving, pushing her behind him. Silas stood in the doorway, soaked with blood rain, smiling. I had a feeling you'd run to Delphine. He stepped inside. So let me make this simple, Iris. Kill Thorne yourself. Drive a stake through his heart. I'll let you live, human and free. The council will accept it as justice. You're insane. Am I? Silas moved closer. He didn't just kill the woman I loved. He turned her, and when she begged him for death, he gave it. She was my wife. And he never even asked her if she wanted to try to survive. Iris looked at Thorne. Is that true? His silence was devastating. Did you even try to save Amelie? Iris felt something breaking inside her. Or did you just give up? I was a coward, Thorne said quietly. And I've been one ever since. The room felt too small. Iris couldn't breathe. She'd been ready to die for him, and he'd given up on someone he loved before. What if he gave up on her too? But then she looked at his face. Really looked. And saw the difference. He wasn't the same man who'd killed Amelie. That choice had destroyed him. Rebuilt him into someone who'd spent 17 years protecting a little girl he had no reason to care about. Who'd starved himself rather than hurt her. Who'd broken out of a guarded manor and killed to find her when she ran. He wouldn't give up on her. He'd fight until there was nothing left. I'll turn, Iris said. Tonight. And if I go mad, you'll do what you should have done with her. You'll fight for me. Thorne looked at her like she'd just offered to cut out her own heart. And if I lose you anyway? Then at least we'll have tried. Delphine nodded and began preparing the ritual. Candles, symbols drawn in salt, words in a language that sounded like it came from the earth itself. Iris lay down on the altar in the center of the room. Above her, the stopped clock seemed to watch. Thorne took her hand. That's when Silas laughed from the shadows. You really think I'll let it be that easy? She was about to become the very thing she'd spent her career protecting children from. And she'd never been more certain of anything. Iris was 9 years old again, huddled under the oak desk with her arm bent wrong and fear living in her throat. She heard footsteps. Heard someone kneel. Heard a voice that didn't sound human but didn't sound cruel either. Who did this? She looked up at eyes that were too blue to be safe and a face that belonged in nightmares, and for some reason she wasn't afraid. For some reason, she reached out. Took his hand. Let him pull her out of the dark. The memory dissolved. Now she was 26, lying on an altar in New Orleans, and Thorne was offering his wrist over her mouth. The same choice. The same trust. Except this time, she was choosing the dark willingly. Drink, he whispered. His blood tasted like copper and thunder, and every moment they'd ever shared. It burned going down. Burned everywhere. Iris felt her human heart stutter, felt her lungs stop working, felt herself dying by degrees. But she could still hear. Could hear Delphine chanting. Could hear Silas attacking with 3 other vampires, crashing through the door with violence and old rage. Could hear Thorne fighting while she lay there helpless, suspended between human and monster. She's not going to make it, Silas snarled over the sound of breaking furniture. Just like Amelie. You're going to watch her die all over again. Gideon was fighting, she could hear his grunts of pain. Delphine was holding the circle, her voice never wavering even as the battle raged around them. And Thorne was everywhere at once, protecting Iris's body while she transformed, taking hits meant for her, bleeding for her. She'll wake up and rip your throat out, Silas laughed. Just like Amelie did before you killed her. Then I'll die knowing I loved her enough to give her the choice. Those words pulled Iris back from the edge. Her heart kicked once. Twice. started beating again, but different now. Stronger. Faster. Eternal. Her eyes opened, and the world looked sharp enough to cut. She could see heat signatures, hear heartbeats 3 rooms away, smell fear and blood and magic. She sat up in the middle of the battle. Silas had Thorne pinned against the wall, a wooden stake raised above his heart. He was monologuing, the way villains do when they think they've won. This is for Amelie. This is for every year I spent alone while you pretended to be noble. Iris moved faster than thought, grabbed Silas by the throat and threw him across the room hard enough to crack the wall. Every vampire froze. She looked at her hands, felt the power singing through her veins, felt the bond with Thorne blazing like a star in her chest. She wasn't mad, wasn't lost. She was more herself than she'd ever been. Her first act as a vampire was saving Thorne's life. Her second was standing beside him against Silas and his followers. Together they fought like they'd been doing it for centuries. Every move she made, he anticipated. Every opening he created, she exploited. The bond didn't make them weak. It made them unstoppable. Silas realized he was losing. Tried to run. Thorne caught him, held him down, and Iris saw the decision in his eyes. Saw him ready to kill. "Don't," she said. Thorne looked at her. "He deserves to die. Maybe. But we deserve to be better than what he made us." So they let Silas live. Stripped him of his power, his followers, his territory. Left him with nothing but the knowledge that mercy was a worse punishment than death. That he'd have to spend eternity watching Thorne and Iris thrive while he withered in his own bitterness. "You want him to suffer?" Iris said as they walked away. "Watch him be happy instead." The sun was rising when they stepped outside. Thorne moved to shield her, ready to burn if it meant protecting her one more time. But the light touched her skin and didn't hurt. Didn't burn. The bond had made her something new. Something stronger. They drove back to Ashford Hollow as the world turned gold. Didn't speak, didn't need to. The bond carried everything words couldn't. 3 months later, the manor looked different. Felt different. Iris had turned it into a sanctuary for abused children. A safe house protected by a vampire lord and his queen. The townspeople whispered, but they also brought their broken kids and their desperate cases and their last hopes. A little girl arrived on a Tuesday. 6 years old, bruises hidden under long sleeves, eyes that had seen too much. She stood in the entrance hall, shaking. Iris watched from the doorway as Thorne knelt in front of the child the same way he'd knelt for her 17 years ago. "You're safe here," he said gently. The girl looked at him with terror that was already starting to crack. "Are you a monster?" "Yes. But I'm your monster now." Iris felt her heart clench. Still beat, even though she was technically dead. Still felt everything, maybe even more than before. She thought love was the end of her story. Turned out it was just the beginning. If this story pulled something out of you, that ache in your chest, that means you're still alive, that means you still believe broken things can be loved back together, leave a comment. Tell me which moment broke you. Tell me if you've ever loved something impossible. And if you believe that monsters are just broken things that never learned to ask for help, if you believe mercy is stronger than revenge, hit subscribe. There are more stories where this came from. Stories about the messy, violent, beautiful truth that love isn't soft. It's survival. And sometimes, it's forever. The town still whispers about the vampire lord and his queen. About the warning he gave. About the abusers who disappeared. About the children who stopped flinching. And about the maid's little girl who didn't just survive the monster. She became one, and loved him anyway. Iris was 9 years old again, huddled under the oak desk with her arm bent wrong and fear living in her throat. She heard footsteps, heard someone kneel, heard a voice that didn't sound human but didn't sound cruel either. Who did this? She looked up at eyes that were too blue to be safe and a face that belonged in nightmares, and for some reason she wasn't afraid. For some reason, she reached out, took his hand, let him pull her out of the dark. The memory dissolved. Now she was 26, lying on an altar in New Orleans, and Thorne was offering his wrist over her mouth. The same choice, the same trust. Except this time, she was choosing the dark willingly. Drink, he whispered. His blood tasted like copper and thunder, and every moment they'd ever shared. It burned going down, burned everywhere. Iris felt her human heart stutter, felt her lungs stop working, felt herself dying by degrees. But she could still hear. Could hear Delphine chanting. Could hear Silas attacking with 3 other vampires, crashing through the door with violence and old rage. Could hear Thorne fighting while she lay there helpless, suspended between human and monster. She's not going to make it, Silas snarled over the sound of breaking furniture. Just like Amelie. You're going to watch her die all over again. Gideon was fighting, she could hear his grunts of pain. Delphine was holding the circle, her voice never wavering even as the battle raged around them. And Thorne was everywhere at once, protecting Iris's body while she transformed, taking hits meant for her, bleeding for her. She'll wake up and rip your throat out, Silas laughed. Just like Amelie did before you killed her. Then I'll die knowing I loved her enough to give her the choice. Those words pulled Iris back from the edge. Her heart kicked once. Twice. Started beating again, but different now. Stronger. Faster. Eternal. Her eyes opened, and the world looked sharp enough to cut. She could see heat signatures, hear heartbeats 3 rooms away, smell fear and blood and magic. She sat up in the middle of the battle. Silas had Thorne pinned against the wall, a wooden stake raised above his heart. He was monologuing, the way villains do when they think they've won. This is for Amelie. This is for every year I spent alone while you pretended to be noble. Iris moved faster than thought. Grabbed Silas by the throat and threw him across the room hard enough to crack the wall. Every vampire froze. She looked at her hands. Felt the power singing through her veins. Felt the bond with Thorne blazing like a star in her chest. She wasn't mad. Wasn't lost. She was more herself than she'd ever been. Her first act as a vampire was saving Thorne's life. Her second was standing beside him against Silas and his followers. Together they fought like they'd been doing it for centuries. Every move she made, he anticipated. Every opening he created, she exploited. The bond didn't make them weak. It made them unstoppable. Silas realized he was losing. Tried to run. Thorne caught him, held him down, and Iris saw the decision in his eyes. Saw him ready to kill. Don't, she said. Thorne looked at her. He deserves to die. Maybe. But we deserve to be better than what he made us. So they let Silas live. Stripped him of his power, his followers, his territory. Left him with nothing but the knowledge that mercy was a worse punishment than death. That he'd have to spend eternity watching Thorne and Iris thrive while he withered in his own bitterness. You want him to suffer? Iris said as they walked away. Watch him be happy instead. The sun was rising when they stepped outside. Thorne moved to shield her, ready to burn if it meant protecting her one more time. But the light touched her skin and didn't hurt. Didn't burn. The bond had made her something new. Something stronger. They drove back to Ashford Hollow as the world turned gold. Didn't speak, didn't need to. The bond carried everything words couldn't. 3 months later, the manor looked different. Felt different. Iris had turned it into a sanctuary for abused children. A safe house protected by a vampire lord and his queen. The townspeople whispered, but they also brought their broken kids and their desperate cases and their last hopes. A little girl arrived on a Tuesday. 6 years old, bruises hidden under long sleeves, eyes that had seen too much. She stood in the entrance hall, shaking. Iris watched from the doorway as Thorne knelt in front of the child the same way he'd knelt for her 17 years ago. "You're safe here," he said gently. The girl looked at him with terror that was already starting to crack. "Are you a monster?" "Yes. But I'm your monster now." Iris felt her heart clench. Still beat, even though she was technically dead. Still felt everything, maybe even more than before. She thought love was the end of her story. Turned out it was just the beginning. If this story pulled something out of you, that ache in your chest, that means you're still alive, that means you still believe broken things can be loved back together, leave a comment. Tell me which moment broke you. Tell me if you've ever loved something impossible. And if you believe that monsters are just broken things that never learn to ask for help, if you believe mercy is stronger than revenge, hit subscribe. There are more stories where this came from. Stories about the messy, violent, beautiful truth that love isn't soft. It's survival. And sometimes, it's forever. The town still whispers about the vampire lord and his queen. About the warning he gave. About the abusers who disappeared. About the children who stopped flinching. And about the maid's little girl who didn't just survive the monster. She became one. And loved him anyway.